If you want to find openings for teaching, the traditional spot has always been the bulletins of the churches. But in the last year or two, the Federation has put a lot of effort in updating our website with openings. And I would strongly recommend you check there and check there even first. That is going to be the most up-to-date, and it doesn't rely upon a church to make sure their bulletins are up-to-date.
Candidates should apply as soon as they see an advertisement. A lot of those are going to start coming out in November, December, January, and February. But even before that, prospective students can send out their resumes to a school, contact them. I've had that as administrator. I really appreciate that, to know that there's someone out there who's thinking about the future and about finding a position within our schools. Candidates should also apply when they begin to see positions coming up on the Federation website. That's done almost on a weekly basis. When new positions open up, they'll be published there. So teachers should immediately apply, and not just to one school or just in an area that they think they would like to move to, but I would encourage them to apply to all of our schools in the West, in the East, wherever it may be.
One of the things oftentimes that you're not going to get from a college, particularly a secular college, is how your experiences fit your Christian faith and how that works in with becoming a Christian school teacher. So oftentimes we see sort of these generic resumes that could go to a public school or a Christian school. We'd like to see something on there that tells us how this person has thought about being a Christian school teacher and how their qualifications really fit with that well.
So colleges and universities tell you a lot of things about a resume, and we want to see about your training and about what you've done at university and a transcript and other such things. But more important to us, we want to see experience. Were you a Sunday school teacher? Did you volunteer to help with swim lessons in the summer? Are you a coach? Have you been a coach? All of those experiences where you as a candidate have worked with students, have worked with young children, have worked with young people, are important to us as school administrators.
We are concerned about both academic and spiritual qualifications, so you always have to keep that in the back of your mind as well. And finally, I would like to see a clear and concise statement as to why you feel that you are called to be a Protestant Reformed school teacher. Are you able to articulate this in a clear manner?
One thing that I found very helpful is when a teacher candidate will actually come to school, knock on my office door, and hand me their resume. I understand that's not an option for some of you. You're out of state or far away, but if you have that ability, make use of it. I appreciate shaking the teacher's hand, getting to know them, looking them in the eye before I actually meet them in the interview.
So I think one of the best things that an interviewee can do in order to prepare for an interview is to really do some background research, and that is think about the position that you're applying for. And I think it's wonderful that oftentimes there are many positions that a teacher is looking at within our schools. But one of the challenges that oftentimes teachers face is that application process starts to feel and look generic again. And what we want to know is that this teacher really understands what they're getting themselves into with this position. Is it a third grade position? Is it a sixth grade position? What makes that position specific? And how are they ready to address the role that they're going to be taking on as a teacher in that grade?
A candidate can prepare for an interview by learning a little bit about each school, talking to different individuals maybe who are teaching the school or maybe in that community that they feel comfortable knowing about. I think it's important that teacher candidates aren't only qualified, but that they also would be a good fit. So I would really encourage teacher candidates to not only just call up the administrator, schedule an interview, send in some papers, but visit the school, especially if it's not the community that you've grown up in. Go and visit them, spend a day, spend a night there. There's usually families that will be very welcoming, and it lets you get to know about that community. It helps you learn about the school that you're potentially going to be teaching in for 1, 2, maybe a lifetime. So I would encourage teacher candidates to go visit the schools. I know it can be easy just to interview over a video conference like Skype or to do something on the phone, but I think not only for the school getting to see you in person, but also for you getting to see the school and its surrounding community, learn about the culture of that school. It's very important to know if you're going to be a fit for them and if they're going to be a fit for you.
All of those background experiences and that background conversation would allow them to come with informed, intelligent questions about what the job entails. And I really appreciate it when young people come to a job interview and have some very specific questions that clearly show that they have thought about the job and they have some concerns and want to know whether or not they're a good fit for that job. Coming with those types of questions because they spent the time up front preparing for it is really, really important.
I would prepare by reading a book or two on education, on Reformed education. You're going to be a Christian school teacher, not just a teacher. Have something that you can embrace about that position, that job that you want to tell us.
A prospective candidate, in order to prepare for an interview, could do a few things that come to mind. One would be read and reread Reformed Education by Professor Inglesma. I believe that that book will set the tone for the basis of how they should answer all of their questions.
Typical interview that I've been a part of is probably 45 minutes. 10 minutes of meet and greet and get to know each other and get comfortable with a situation. Understand what you're interviewing for as a candidate, and then kind of the list of questions that we want to go through. And that list is predetermined in some cases, but it always branches off into follow-up questions, questions regarding your social life, questions regarding your upbringing, questions regarding what led you to become a teacher, and then professional type questions that really get at how you've been prepared and what you have done in different situations as a teacher candidate.
We go through those answers and really sort of quiz them on how they feel about being a Christian school teacher, how they plan to integrate the Reformed Christian faith into their work as a teacher, and how it is that they'll take the content of God's creation and turn that into the backdrop of education for young people. The other thing that I think we really focus on in the interview process is getting to know the person and looking for several very important key aspects into qualifications for the job. And if I can go through a few of those, we look for passion. Do they really want to be a teacher? What drives them as a teacher, and how eager are they for this specific job, but also just generally speaking to be a teacher? We look for professionalism. Did they come well prepared? Are they ready to talk about their education? Are they confident in the training that they've received and their desire for this work? And do they show spiritual maturity? That's so critically important. Are they ready to lead young children in every aspect of their education to learn how to glorify God through their learning and taking that education forward in their lives? We're also very keen on finding young people who are interested in working with others. And again, this is going to vary from one school to another, but you need to know what you're getting yourself into. Is it a grade that has multiple classrooms per grade, or is it multiple grades per classroom? Having an understanding of that position and being able to articulate why you fit that position well is something that's going to come out in that interview process.
Teacher candidates should expect, at least in my experience, 4 types of questions. Personal, tell us about yourself, your upbringing, your family, your church life. Professional type questions, secondly, that have to do with training in the university or the college. Theoretical type questions about the learning that has gone on and how that applies. And then especially the more important ones are the classroom type questions. We like as an education committee to hear from a student about what their classroom looked like that day. If we had been sitting there, what would we have seen? What would we have experienced? What's the candidate's teaching style? How were the students learning? And then we throw out some situations, some difficulties that could have arisen as far as student behavior, as far as student learning, perhaps a parent type situation, and how did the candidate respond to the parent? How did they best communicate with the parent? And kind of give us then a whole overview of the candidate as a teacher in the classroom.
Some of the questions may be personal in nature, but I hope a teacher or a prospective teacher would realize that is only done as a sign of how important we view this work and how seriously we take this position.
A teacher candidate should expect a variety of questions, and each school is going to ask a different set of questions that's unique to their situation. But overall, a school wants to know who you are. They only have 45 minutes to get to know you, and they're going to probe deep to figure out who you are as a teacher and who you are as a person. Some of the questions that they might ask is, what is your educational philosophy? Be ready to have an answer on what you see Reformed education is. Be ready to have an answer on what you think a Reformed teacher is supposed to do in the classroom. Be ready to have an answer when they ask you, what is a covenant child? How do you best teach a covenant child? These are some of the questions that you're going to want to be ready to answer.
So after you've applied and interviewed, as a board and as an education committee, we have some work to do, and that typically takes a few weeks. You won't hear back from us officially until late February, typically the last week or so of February, and I'll give you a call, let you know how the interview process went, let you know where we are as a board, and often by that time we're ready to make a decision, or we have made a decision. We can communicate that decision to you at that time. We can't offer you a contract at that time if you're a teacher candidate.
After your interview, you're going to enter the no communication phase, and you're not going to like it because you've just spent a lot of time interviewing, preparing, and you're not going to hear from a school for quite some time. There are guidelines that the Federation has in place that we cannot communicate to the candidate anything in regards to a contract before February 21. So if you interview early January, you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks before you hear anything. After February 21, a school can reach out to you and tell them that they would like to give you a contract. They cannot actually give you the contract, but they can just verbally give you intent. If you are an existing teacher, you will receive a paper contract March 1. If you are a new teacher coming out of college, you will receive your contract April 1. Now for some of you, maybe you don't hear anything from any school until after April 1. Don't worry, maybe you're not the first person on their list. But that doesn't matter. Sometimes there are so many excellent candidates, they have to pick one, and you're equally as good, but you're going to find out a little bit later. Just be patient.
So one of the things that we think about as Reformed Christians all the time is this idea of God's providence. And then there's this temptation when real life circumstances hit, we all of a sudden just sort of forget about that doctrine. But one of the most important things about being a Reformed believer is believing that God prepared me for a place, and at the same time God prepared that place for me. So the question is, all right, if I believe that, how do I figure that out? How do I figure out what God's fit is for me within educational circles? And I think the answer to that is, first of all, again, being well informed. You don't know if you're a good fit for a small school out west or a big school in Michigan if you don't interview at both places. So I think it's critically important that students coming out of college interview widely to understand what might be a good fit for them. It's also good to just simply be wise and think about what sort of lifestyle that you're interested in living. Are you interested in being more of a rural, smaller, tight community, or are you more interested in being in more of an urban or suburb environment with a very large school? Those kind of environments are going to influence the places that you want to interview and the kind of life that you want to live after that. Part of the other thing is simply going through the interview process and getting a feel for the culture of a school. And again, this is where talking to teachers from that school and talking with board members and getting a feel for what that culture is like is so important. Oftentimes, you'll be surprised. You go to a school, you thought it was one thing, and after teaching or talking to the teachers and the board, you find out it's something altogether different than what you expected. You won't know that if you don't go through the work of interviewing. And then trusting that God in His providence has prepared a place for you, has suited you to that job, will lead you to that place. And again, every minister who takes a call will tell you, it's hard to say, but I knew it when I saw it, when I felt it. And that same call will come to you as a teacher too. When the fit is there, God will make it abundantly clear to you where you ought to be.